Hi guys, we're doing this again because Sadie started barking in the middle of the other one, so we'll send you both. But here's Grandpa Jim, and he's reading
Scrambled Egg Super by Dr. Seuss.
And here's Sadie.
There's Peter T. Hooper writing a thingy.
And there's Peter T. Hooper.
And there's Scrambled Egg Super by Dr. Seuss. Peter T. Hooper. I don't like to brag and I don't like to boast, said Peter T. Hooper, but speaking of toast, and speaking of kitchens and ketchup and cake, and kettles and stoves and the stuff people bake. Well, I don't like to brag and I don't like to, but I'm telling you, Liz, that speaking of cooks, I'm the best that there is. Why, only last Tuesday, when Mother was out, I really cooked something worth talking about. You see, I was sitting there resting my legs, and I happened to pick up a couple of eggs. I sort of got thinking, it's sort of a shame that scrambled eggs always taste always the same. And that's because ever since goodness knows when, they've always been made from the eggs of a hen. Just a plain common hen, what a dumb thing to use with all of the other fine eggs you could choose. So I decided that just for a change, I'd scramble a new kind of egg on the range. Some fine fancy eggs that no other cook cooks, like the eggs of the ruffle-necked salamagooks. A salamagook say they should be good, so I went out and found some as quick as I could. And while I was lugging them back to the house, I happened to notice a tipple-topped grouse in a tree down the street, and I knew from her looks...
Let's see the picture of that.
Oh.
That's a tipple-tap whatever. It's that
That's
thing
a
that Grandpa
tipple-topped grouse.
just said.
Yeah.
Okay.
That her egg was the egg of the salamagooks ought to mix mighty well, ought to simply taste super when scrambled together by Peter T. Hooper. So I took the eggs home, I frizzled them up, and I added some sugar, 2/3 of a cup, and a small pinch of pepper, and also a pound of horseradish sauce that was laying around. And also some nuts. Then I tasted the stuff, and it tasted quite fine, but not quite fine enough. To make the best scramble that's ever been made, a cook has to hook the best eggs ever laid. So I drove to the country, quite rather far out, and I studied the birds that were flitting about. I looked with great care at a mop-noodled finch. I looked at a beagle-beaked,
which one do you think that
bald-headed Grinch.
Stop a sec. Which one is which? Which one do you think is the one?
This is the mop-noodled finch.
Okay.
This is the bald-headed
Whatever.
beagle-beaked, bald-headed Grinch. I also looked at a shade-roosting quail who was roosting right under a lassalax tail. I looked at a spritz and a flannel-winged jay, but I didn't stop. I just kept right on my way, because they didn't have eggs. They weren't laying that day. Then suddenly, boy, up the hill a short space, birds, they were laying all over the place. Happy, gay families with uncles and cousins, all laying strictly fine fresh eggs by the dozens. Why, I'd have a scramble more super than super. Scrambled egg super-de-duper-de-duper, special deluxe a la Peter T. Hooper. I picked out the eggs in a most careful way. I only picked eggs that I knew were grade A. I only took eggs from the very best fowls, so I didn't take eggs from the Twitter owls, because I knew that the eggs of those fellows who twiddle taste sort of like dust from inside of a spittle. I went for a kind of eggs that were mellow and sweet. The world's sweetest eggs are the eggs of a queet, which is due to the very sweet trout which they eat. And those trout, well, they're sweet because they only eat wogs, and wogs, after all, are the world's sweetest frogs. And the reason they're sweet is whenever they lunch, it's always the world's sweetest bees that they munch. And the reason no bees can be sweeter than these bees only eat blossoms off beezelnut trees. And those beezelnut blossoms are sweeter than sweet, and that's why I nabbed several eggs from a queet. But I passed up the eggs of a bird called a strudel, who's sort of a stork, but with fur like a poodle. And they say that the eggs of this kind of a stork are gooey, and they stick to your fork. While the yolks of these eggs, I am told, taste like fleece, while the whites taste a little like very old bicycle grease. Ooh. The places I'd hiked and the roads that I rambled to find the best eggs that have ever been scrambled. I hunted new birds along wild tangled trails, through gullies and gulches, down dingles and dales. I wriggled my way and I crawled at a creek through a forest of ferns that was 40 miles deep. And I mushed through a brush till I found a fine quigger, whose eggs are as big as a pinhead, no bigger. Then I went for the eggs of a long-legger quong. Now this quong, well, she's built just a little bit wrong, for her legs are so terribly, terribly long.
Look at that.
That she has to lay eggs 20 feet in the air, and they drop with a plop to the ground from up there. So unless you can catch them before the eggs crash, you haven't got eggs, you've got long-legger hash. Eggs, I'd collected 302, but I still needed more. I suddenly knew that the job was too big for one fellow to do. So I telegraphed north to some friends near Fazol, which is 10 miles or so beyond the North Pole. Then all of them jumped in their catamus slide, which is sort of a boat made of leopard skin, sea leopard side, which they sailed out to sea to go looking for grice, which is a sort of a bird which lays eggs on the ice, which they grab with a tool which is known as a squish, because those eggs are too cold to be touched without which.
All right, we're doing a quick commercial break for dog. This is Sadie. You can't tell which... Oh, there's her head. Okay. Sometimes we can't tell which side of her is her head and which is her tail because it's all fluff.
Okay, and while they were sending those eggs, I got word of a bird that does something that's almost unheard of. It's hard to believe, but this bird called a pelf lays eggs that are 3 times as big as herself. How that pelf ever learned such a difficult trick, I never found out, but I found that egg quick, and I managed to get one out of the nest and home to the kitchen along with the rest. But I didn't stop then, because I knew of some ducks by the name of the single-filed Zoomian zucks, who stroll single file through the mountains of Zooms, quite oddly enough with their eggs on their thumbs. And some fellows in Zooms whom I happen to know just happened to capture 1,000 or so, and they wrapped up their eggs and mailed them by air, marked special delivery, handle with care. I needed more helpers, and so for assistance I called up a fellow named Ali, long distance. And Ali, as soon as he hung up the phone, picked up a small basket and started alone to climb the steep crags and the jags of Mount Struku, to fetch me the eggs of a Mount Struku cuckoo. Now these Mount Struku cuckoos are rather small gals, but these Mount Struku cuckoos have lots of big pals. They dive from the skies with their crackling shrieks, and they jabbed at his legs, and they stabbed at his cheeks, and their yammering, clamoring, hammering beaks. But Ali, brave Ali, he fought his way through, and he sent me that egg I knew he would do for my scrambled egg super-dee-duper-dee-booper, special deluxe a la Peter T. Hooper. In the meantime, of course, I was keeping real busy collecting the eggs of a 3-eyelashed tizzy. They're quite hard to reach, so I rode on top of a hammock, shimmick, slop.
That's not what it says, is it?
No. Then I found a flock of southwest-facing cranes, and I guess they've got something that's wrong with their brains, for this kind of a crane, when she's guarding her nest, will always stand facing precisely southwest. So to get those eggs wasn't hard in the least. I came up from behind, from precisely northeast. Okay, we're getting there. And I captured the egg of a grickly gractus who lays him up high in a prickly cactus.
You see the cactus?
There's the cactus. Okay. Then I went for some ziffs. They're exactly like zuffs, but the ziffs live on cliffs and the zuffs live on bluffs. And seeing how bluffs are exactly like cliffs, it's mighty hard telling the zuffs from the ziffs. But I know that the egg that I got from the bluffs, if it wasn't a ziffs from the cliffs, was a zuffs.
That's Grandpa Jim's favorite page of any book.
Now I needed the egg of a moth-watching sniff, Who's a bird who's so big she scares people to death? And this awfully big bird, well, the reason they name her the moth-washing sneth is 'cause that's how they tame her. She likes watching moths, sort of quiets her mind. And while she is watching, you sneak up behind and you yank out her egg. So I got one, of course, with the help of some friends and a very fast horse. If you want to get eggs you can't buy at a store, you have to do things never thought of before. Why, to get the egg of one very small doff, we had to pry all of one mountaintop off. Then I heard of some birds who lay eggs, if you please, that taste like the air in the hole in Swiss cheese. And they live in big Zanzibar trees. So I ordered a treeful, the job was immense. But I needed the eggs, so I said, hang the expense. And I still needed one more, and I saved it for last. The egg of the frightful bombastic aghast. And that bird is so mean, that bird is so fast, that I had to escape on a jillicajast, a fleet-footed beast who you still steer by like a deer, but sort of looks like something, you steer him by ear. Oh, he can run like a deer, but sort of looks different, you steer him by ear. Sorry about that. All through with the searching, all through with the cooking, I had all I needed, and now for the cooking. I rushed to the kitchen, the place where I'd stacked. I rolled up my sleeves, I unpacked them and cracked them, and shucked them and chucked them in 99 pans, and I mixed in some beans. I used 55 cans. Then I mixed in some ginger, 9 prunes, and 3 figs, and parsley, quite sparsely, just 22 sprigs. Then I added 6 cinnamon sticks and a clove, and my scramble was ready to go on the stove. And you know how they tasted? They tasted just like, well, they tasted exactly just like scrambled egg super, de duper, de booper, special deluxe a la Peter T. Hooper.
Is that the end?
The end. And there he is on his jillicajast. Ta-da!
Did you
Dr. Seuss.
Did you guys like that?
Turn them off.
Okay, I'm saying hi to Sadie. And then I don't know how to say hi to me. So here I am.
There's Grandma Ronnie. Say hi.
Hi. Bye, guys.